Welcome to the EntreEd Talk podcast. We are your hosts, Toi Hirschman and
Laura McCall.
Join us as we dive into incredible stories from inspiring entrepreneurs around the world.
Whether you are an educator looking for ideas to engage students, a new learner, or someone who wants to be inspired, our guest journeys and their ideas will give you resources to create value and take your own leap into entrepreneurship.
We are so looking forward to sharing our message with you. And don't forget to like, rate, and subscribe to the EntreEd Talk podcast on whatever platform you listen. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the EntreEd Talk podcast. We are here today with Dr. J.D. LaRock, who has a really cool name. JD is the president and CEO of Nifty, NFTE, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship. We've had some folks from Nifty on before, so we're really excited about this. JD came to Nifty from the Commonwealth Corporation, Massachusetts public-private state authority focused on workforce and youth development. As Commonwealth Corporation's president and CEO, JD dramatically expanded the organization's external fundraising and significantly enhanced its visibility in the media, thought leadership, government, and philanthropic communities. During his tenure, JD also chaired Massachusetts Governor Charlie Baker's Commission on Digital Innovation and Lifelong Learning. JD grew up in Queens, New York, in a family of public school educators and is a proud graduate of the city's public schools. He began his career as a spokesperson for the New York City school system under former Chancellor Rudy Crew, and then became the education reporter for NY1, the city's all-news cable channel. Following graduate school, JD became an education policymaker where he focused on writing laws to strengthen public schools and help students from low-income backgrounds. As senior education advisor to late U.S. Senator Ted Kennedy, he led the passage of a higher education law that provided $20 billion, with a B, in new Pell Grants to our nation's college students. As education policy director for former Massachusetts Governor Deval Patrick, he authored a K-12 education law that fostered the turnaround of several low-performing school districts and helped the state win $250 million through the Obama administration's Race to the Top grant competition. For much of the past decade, JD has worked as a teacher, scholar, and university administrator focused on experiential learning, entrepreneurship, and the future of work. As chief of staff to the president of Northeastern University in Boston, he served on a leadership team that completed the institution's transformation from a commuter college to a top-ranked global research university. He has also served as professor of the practice of law and policy at Northeastern, teaching doctoral students from the US and around the world. If that's not enough, JD has also authored, edited, and contributed to several books, including Special Education for a New Century, Education at a Glance, and Robot Proof, Higher Education in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. I looked that one up already. Sounds really cool. He has served on a variety of public and nonprofit boards, including the Massachusetts Board of Higher Education and the board of North Shore Community College, the latter of which he chaired. JD earned his bachelor's, master's, and doctoral degrees at Harvard University and a law degree from Georgetown. So holy moly, that is amazing. Welcome, JD. We're so excited to have you today.
No, thank you for having me. Great to be with you.
This is going to be so much fun. So, wow. All right. So you're super busy. And we're very excited to dive into all of this. But before we do, can you just share with our audience a little bit more about yourself, how you got to where you are today, and what's new?
Sure. Well, I would just say that a lot of what I've done in my life and career really stems from the fact that I grew up in a family of public school educators. And I had the opportunity to attend really great public schools, diverse public schools. That served me well and helped me grow and helped me build a perspective that was pluralistic in its outlook. And so I really have tried to combine that upbringing with a desire that I've had to work in and around the nonprofit and social impact and government and policy worlds. And so I've always looked for opportunities in my career to make the world a better place. And I'm so glad that for the past 10 months, I've been able to do that at Nifty, the Network for Teaching Entrepreneurship, where, as you know, we serve about 40,000 students in the US across 25 states and 11 metropolitan regions, and another 50,000 students through partnerships with 11 countries and growing. So it's wonderful work. I can't think of anything that we need more right now than to help reduce inequality that's growing in our society by helping young people develop their capabilities and entrepreneurial mindset and become future business leaders and entrepreneurs and small business owners.
We love Nifty, as you know. What was it like being in you've done some amazing education policy development, and as a policy wonk, I love policy. So tell us a little inside scoop of what that was like.
Well, being a policymaker is really interesting because let's take my work with Senator Kennedy working as a Senate staff member. So at the time, he was chairman of the Senate Education Committee, and I was his representative working with other Senate offices to try to renew the Higher Education Act, which is the core law that supports higher education in the nation. In order to get things done in Washington, you really have to work with a really diverse set of people who have diverse perspectives, diverse ideologies, often strong ideologies and opinions that may differ from your own. And despite that, the task at hand is to work together as best you can to get something done on behalf of the nation. And I personally look back at my time as a Senate staff member in particular as really important for my own development as a professional and a leader, because it forced me to engage with the idea of collaboration and compromise in the deepest possible ways. And I bring that up because, it's something I think that is absent these days from our political discourse and our social discourse, maybe even our social fabric. Our nation is very polarized right now. I also think that collaboration and compromise, working together, problem solving together, relates very strongly to what we're trying to do at Nifty. We talk a lot about the entrepreneurial mindset, as you know, and communication, collaboration, and problem solving are 3 dimensions of the entrepreneurial mindset. In order to become a successful entrepreneur and a successful business leader, you have to have those skills. You also need those skills if you're going to pass laws to help benefit people. In the case of the work that I did with Senator Kennedy, try to help students from disadvantaged communities get a fair shot at being able to go to college and support them in doing so.
It's not often you get to work with someone as great as Senator Kennedy was. I was a lobbyist in DC for 4 years, and my huge memory was being in a small room with Senator McCain. And so when he passed, personally, I was so sad because you don't have many moments like that in your life, and you're going through it, maybe you don't realize how impactful that moment was. And so you're talking about your early career, and I agree that, being among those very bright people, and you're also very bright, it's a wow factor, to feed off of that and to be able to collaborate with that level of persons who are really shaping what we do.
I agree. And I've just been very fortunate to have had experiences to connect with a number of leaders who I've really watched closely and tried to learn from. I learned so much just by watching Senator Kennedy operate, because as you know, he was someone who did have a very strong ideology, but he also had an incredible ability to have real friendships with people who believed very different things from him, and to be productive in getting things done on behalf of the nation. There's probably no leader in the past 100 years who passed as many laws as Senator Kennedy did. Compare that to where we are today. And he's one of many leaders. Rudy Crew, the school's chancellor in New York City, who I worked for at the start of my career, is a dynamic and forceful and passionate leader, really committed to racial equity and social justice. Deval Patrick, the former governor of Massachusetts, such a wonderful practitioner of the art of personal politics, who had a wonderful personal way of being in politics that served him very well. And then the last governor I worked for, the Massachusetts current governor, Charlie Baker, one of the smartest individuals I've ever had the opportunity to work for, and who I must say has led the Commonwealth of Massachusetts very ably through the COVID-19 crisis.
Wow. Well, that is very, very true. I love the what you talked about. I didn't think we were going to go in this direction, but I'm loving it. But talking about collaboration and compromise, and how that's pretty much absent right now, and something that we really need to help build in students. And you talked about, in your bio, we mentioned that with the Commonwealth, you have this lifelong learning ecosystem. And could you speak a little bit to how that looks for the Commonwealth and how that translates to K through 12 and your work with Nifty?
Sure. Well, when I was working with Governor Baker and leading Massachusetts Workforce Development Authority, we really focused on this idea that a 4-year college degree is not really for everybody, and it's actually getting to be out of reach for many people because it's so expensive. And at the same time, we also know that there are really a lot of good careers for which you don't need a 4-year degree, but what you do need is a really high quality program. We know today in the nation that there are a lot of people who go directly from high school into college, but there are a lot who don't. And that's becoming more and more the case. The kind of typical college student nowadays is an adult learner. And yet our higher education system is still primarily set up for the student who has just graduated high school and is going directly into college. That actually doesn't reflect the experience of the typical college student today. So the governor challenged us and asked me to lead a Blue Ribbon Commission to figure out new models to help adult learners and workers gain the learning and training and education they need through online and hybrid courses. And we came up with a model to do that in cooperation with employers so that people could get access to kind of short-term online or hybrid courses co-designed between educational institutions and employers that were meant to help people rise up from entry-level jobs that they might otherwise be stuck in. And by the way, our challenge was to try to do that in a way that was affordable too. So we were very fortunate to get a large grant from an organization called Strata, which has really been at the forefront of supporting work to connect education and workforce much more emphatically. And they helped us launch this work, which is now ongoing. I've taken the spirit of that over to Nifty in two ways, both for K-12, but also on the adult learner side. So Nifty, as you know, for its 30-plus year history, has focused exclusively on programs to serve high schoolers and middle schoolers. But in the midst of the COVID pandemic, we've now launched something called Nifty Career Relaunch, which is an online, self-paced, 14-lesson course designed to help adults, and particularly people who might have been laid off in the COVID pandemic, relaunch their careers as entrepreneurs. And so just like a traditional Nifty course that our high schoolers take in the classroom, this course covers all the topics that you would need to take your idea and convert it into a business plan. So learners will go through this 14-step sequence, and they'll learn how to develop their business idea and look at the customer base, determine their competitive advantage, determine how best to market their idea, and as I said, come out the other end with a pretty fully formed business plan. As a matter of fact, we've just partnered with GSV, Global Silicon Valley, the well-known entity behind the ASU GSV EdTech conference, to be part of their boot camp. And so Nifty Career Relaunch has been embedded in this boot camp that's going on right now. And I am proud to say that we've enrolled nearly 1,000 learners in this effort, and I think it's going to help a lot of people. I'll just touch briefly on how all of this, I think, also pertains to K-12 education. You know, I think one of the things we've learned, or one of the things that I've learned from my work in higher education, is that learning is not just about mastery of content, it's about mastery of core skills. And a lot of the things that we focused on in the design of these innovative programs for Massachusetts wasn't about, specific factual content in a domain, but really helping adult learners develop the habits of mind that would enable them to take the step from an entry-level position to the next level, or from a mid-level position onto a management position. And that, in my mind, connects very, very concretely back to the core of the work that we do at Nifty, which is to help young learners develop the entrepreneurial mindset. We're very happy when learners complete our core programs and complete their business plans and compete in our competitions and win them. But we're also very happy when we see growth in our students in those entrepreneurial mindset domains, because we know that learners who develop those skill sets, communication, collaboration, critical thinking, problem solving, ability to manage risk, future orientation, those are the learners who will have a flexible mind, and that will serve them well in whatever they do, whether they become an entrepreneur or whether they go work for a company or somewhere else.
You've said so many things. I'm crazy writing while we're talking. I love the words rise up and also relaunch, because those are powerful. I think in this time period of we're transitioning in our education and in our world in general, we need positivity, and someone like a Nifty who's in there really recreating or creating, not just recreate, but creating a whole new way of learning. And you mentioned lifelong learning, and I strongly believe that we all should be constantly learning something. So talk a little bit more about the lifelong learning and digital innovation, and what is Nifty maybe specifically doing with that?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, Nifty, I'm proud to say, has done a really good job thus far in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. And a huge reason why is that our organization did a good job investing in digital capabilities. And so for all of our programs, our Entrepreneurship 1 program, Entrepreneurship 2, Entrepreneurship Essentials, Startup Tech, these are all available in an online format. We use a learning management system, Canvas, with our teachers and our students. And I was pleased to see our teachers utilize and our students utilize our digital capabilities much more as we've transitioned to fully remote learning because of COVID-19. So digital innovation starts with having your sort of traditional programs available through digital means. And we've since enhanced what we had with lots of opportunities for our learners to connect to mentorship resources through events on Instagram Live and Facebook Live. So we've now pivoted to incorporating these additional platforms into what we do. And it's been really great for the students because they're on Instagram. So they will gravitate to things that we put on Instagram because they like to be on Instagram. We moved our competition sequence, which usually takes place in person, onto a fully online format. So now, and we just completed it for this spring, and we'll have our national competition, which typically takes place in person in New York City in the fall in a virtual format. So our students recorded their business pitches on their phone, and they uploaded it to a platform, and the judges, viewed the submissions and offered feedback. And we had live events where where students made their pitches and the judges judged them. And so we were able to do everything that we typically do in person online. So I think the future, frankly, even when we get past COVID, will involve the incorporation of more of that. And that is a piece of what I think about when I think about digital innovation. And again, when it comes to lifelong learning, I would just say that we're taking next steps at Nifty to ascertain what impact our programs have on longer term outcomes of our learners. So we already know that Nifty learners create businesses at much higher rates than the typical student. We already know that Nifty learners go into college and graduate college at higher rates than students who don't take part in our programs. And that's really great. We also want to learn whether students who take part in Nifty programs ultimately have higher earnings and better career outcomes because of their participation in Nifty. So our research department has been focusing a lot of attention lately on taking those next steps to see if we can prove our value proposition even better than we already have.
Wow, that's really fascinating. And I'm getting my doctorate in instructional design right now, which nobody knew what that meant until about 4 months ago. What is it? Yeah, and everybody knows. How does your research team get those long-term studies? Do they ask students when they start a program, or is it how are they doing that? Because we talk a lot about how do we quantify entrepreneurial mindset? How do we evaluate it in some way? Because education wants to see that. But I'm interested how you guys have been able to do that.
Well, in terms of trying to capture the growth in the entrepreneurial mindset, Nifty has really been a pioneer in developing assessments that do just that. People sometimes ask me, is creativity something that can be measured? And we would say, yes, it can. It can. Yeah, I see.
Measuring EMI.
Measuring the entrepreneurial mindset is something that can be done, and creativity is a skill that can be developed. We want to move past the kind of easy, lazy thinking that says you're either an entrepreneur or you're not. You're either creative or you're not. These are skill sets just like any other that you can practice and develop and get better at over time. And some years ago, we developed the Entrepreneurial Mindset Index, which is a 20-minute assessment that students take at the beginning of a Nifty program and at the end of the program. And it measures their growth in the entrepreneurial mindset domains that I discussed: collaboration, problem solving, future orientation, risk-taking, creativity, and a number of others. And it actually, in a very fun way, matches students with archetypes. Successful business owners and entrepreneurs who share the same mix of entrepreneurial mindset skills that they do. So, for example, when I took the EMI, when I became CEO of Nifty, the test told me that I was most like Elon Musk. I'm still trying to figure out if that's a good thing or bad thing, ultimately. I guess it depends on the month.
Big space future for you, right?
There we go, right? So, sometimes you might take the test and be your archetype might be Oprah Winfrey or some other successful entrepreneur. I'll also say that what we do with matching students to their archetypes in real life is really important because Nifty is a very equity-focused organization. The overwhelming majority of students that we work with are students of color. We work with many, many Latino students and many, many African American students, and we are focused on providing our program in schools in disadvantaged areas. One of the biggest issues that students in those neighborhoods face is that they don't always see themselves through the lens of people out in our world who are successful. So things like our Entrepreneurial Mindset Index draw a very direct line between the skill sets that these students have, because the test shows that they have them, and a parallel of a successful entrepreneur who they may admire or want to emulate. And I think that's a small but very important piece of the psychology of what we do.
I don't think it's small at all. We've had a few people that we've spoken to that are also very passionate about making sure students have someone they can see as an entrepreneurial, that they can identify with. And that's something that's really missing a lot of times, and you hear about Richard Branson, Steve Jobs, these names, I don't identify with those people. And so it's nice when that Nifty is doing that and giving students that connection to someone real that they could identify with. And I love the thing I love so much about, I'm a super huge, big foam finger carrion fan of the EMI because of the growth part of it, because it's not a test that you take and, oh, I got a 60% on this, so I can't be an entrepreneur. I love that it measures, it's measuring where you are, and then it measures your growth over the course of this intervention, really, but over the course of the Nifty programs. And I think it's a really amazing tool, and we love it. We thank you for that. And
yeah, I think there are a lot of special things about our model. Teachers tell me all the time, I love teaching Nifty because it's so different from everything else that I am asked to do. And I think that's why our students love it too. And the difference is very simple. Instead of being teacher directed, the model is very learner directed. Students start out each unit in a Nifty course really engaging in collaborative problem solving, where there is no right or wrong answer. There's just ideas. And it's very project based, as you know, which engages students throughout. And we have innovations like the Entrepreneurial Mindset Index. But most of all, what I think is special about the Nifty model is that it is premised on the idea that everything that a student needs to be successful, they already have within them. I think students really take ownership of the projects and ideas that they develop through a Nifty course, because it's not something that someone else gave to them. It's something that came from them. And so it connects to a passion or something they care about or an experience in their life. And that's why our learners sustain with the program and really get into it and are so motivated to turn that idea into an actual business.
So true. That's one of the things that is just, we hope to see more and more of it in schools, because it's something that once you connect to something, and you're going to learn it, if you're going to be motivated, and that is such a huge thing, and it just doesn't happen as often as we'd love to see it happen. We can't just give kids information anymore. They're not just passive consumers of information. They have to be actively engaged in what they're doing, and there has to be a purpose. And I think I think Nifty does that really well. And just for our listeners, just so our listeners know, check out, just Google Nifty toolkits, and you will find some, if you're looking for some really cool stuff, because you have obviously your programs that teachers can engage with, but just to look at some of your stuff, it's really great what you've put out there for free for teachers to use. So everyone check that out.
Thank you. And if I can just add, we recently relaunched our website, and I'd like to acknowledge, if I can, the Diana Davis Spencer Foundation for helping us with that, as well as the Donner Foundation. And our new website has a tremendous amount of further free resources that teachers can access. And if anyone listening is interested in the Nifty Career Relaunch Program that I mentioned earlier for adults, it's also accessible for free through our website. And that's www.nifty.com, NFTE.com.
I'm going to take it. I'm on it.
Awesome.
No, I love those kind of, I don't know, what do you call them? Just different tests, different mind-opening things, whether it's the Myers-Briggs, or I did some in business early on, and what quadrant do you fall in? It doesn't really matter. It's like where your client is that matters, and how you meet them. Looking at these assessments, you guys are so very good at it. I love also aha moments. Are there things that you're hearing from employers that say, yes, this strikes a chord, that what they're seeing come out of your Nifty students?
Yes. Well, two things. Number one, what strikes a chord with employers is that we are making an attempt to develop these broad skills, and not just trying to load up young learners' minds with factual knowledge that may or may not be relevant. Companies want good employees. And what makes a good employee? A person who's motivated, a person who can communicate clearly, a person who can advocate for themselves, a person who can collaborate with others, a person who can get through disagreements, a person who can anticipate what's coming. These are all the domains of the entrepreneurial mindset. And this is why I say, even though we're proud that so many of our learners go on to actually become small business owners and entrepreneurs, and CEOs. We're also proud of our learners who go on to be very successful as employees and managers and leaders within established companies. It's because we've made such an effort to develop the entrepreneurial mindset. That's one thing that resonates with employers. Another thing that resonates with employers is this idea that increasingly there ought to be alternative pathways for people to get good jobs within companies. We have a very successful internship program that one of our corporate partners, Moody's, has really spearheaded. And we're bringing other corporate partners like Citi and EY and MasterCard into the mix. And they're coming to the table and wanting to expand on these efforts because they see that a student coming out of high school who may just be a freshman or sophomore in college, or maybe not in college, but actually working to make their Nifty project a reality, could be a very successful and well-positioned intern or fellow in their company because they've established those habits of mind and those dimensions of the entrepreneurial mindset that will set them up to be good employees in the company. And so we're very grateful to Moody's in particular, I would say, because they've really embraced this way of thinking and have provided a lot of our learners with great opportunities to be summer interns in Moody's, which is it's a financial services company. It's very high level and technical, but they've given students who come from disadvantaged circumstances a lot of opportunities, and they're successful because they have been Nifty students. And then the third thing I would say that's resonating with employers is just our commitment as an organization to be equity-based and really work on these issues of inequality and racial justice and social justice that are plaguing our nation. We're not a political organization. We don't subscribe to any particular ideology, but we do say that there are deep inequities in American society, and we can work together in positive ways to make a difference and to try to correct that and make them better. And one thing that I think we do that is very relevant to this moment, when people are talking about deep inequities for Black Americans and other people of color in this country, is that we provide a pipeline of Black and brown entrepreneurs that will be the next generation of business owners and CEOs in the nation. And that is really important because too many people from previous generations who look like our students have been shut out. But because of Nifty and other organizations like ours, and I will say corporate partners who support what we do, I think that will not be as much the case in the future.
Well, I have goosebumps now. That was awesome. Oh my goodness. I love that you're working with corporations and kind of bridging that gap between the actual IRL, real life, and schools, because that's something that we see the successful educators that we've talked to every single time when you ask about their success, it's because they've been able to bridge that gap in a smaller way. You guys are doing it on a grand scale. So I think that that's so important, and just really important for education to listen to business and listen to what's going on in the world and try to communicate and collaborate so that they're building, educators are actually helping get students prepared for what's coming at them, because the world is changing so quickly it's such a huge, huge thing. But, oh, wow. So we have this sort of question that we always ask, and that is, as if an educator is listening to this podcast, what advice might you give him or her if he or she wants to get started with experiential learning and entrepreneurship?
Well, it's really easy to get in touch with us. So I would say the first thing you could do is go to our website, www.nifty.com. And first of all, check out our free resources because I am an educator, among other things, as you know. And one of the things that I really want to do as the relatively new CEO of Nifty is prioritize what we give our educators. And so there are lots of free resources that relate to our model and our program that educators can take advantage of. And beyond that, I would say that, most of the teachers I meet are already so attuned to the value of experiential learning because they see the ways in which some of what they're asked to do doesn't resonate as much as experiential and project-based learning methods do. And so, I invite any teacher who might be listening, who wants to become part of our network of several thousand schools across the nation, to just reach out to us. There's contact information on our site about the folks who are involved in program work in our various regions. And if I can just take a moment, as I said, we're in 25 states, and particularly during these times when we're doing a lot of our activity remotely, it almost doesn't matter what state you might be in. If you're a teacher interested in bringing Nifty to your school, and we're going to be doing it possibly remotely or at least in a hybrid fashion, we're ready to do it. And if your district and school is ready, we can make it happen. Doesn't matter if you're in Wyoming or South Dakota or Louisiana, we can help you. But we focus our work in New England, New York, Philadelphia, Baltimore, Washington, D.C., Florida. Actually, we're growing rapidly across the entire South. Chicago, St. Louis, the Bay Area, LA. Actually, if I can just take this opportunity to make a pitch, if anyone listening is from the Mountain States or the Pacific Northwest, get in touch with us, because we'd like to bring more Nifty programs to those regions in particular. Those are some of the areas where we haven't quite gotten the depth of programming that we'd like to see. So as you can tell, I'm on a campaign to get Nifty in all 50 states, and as I said, we're in 11 countries, and that list is growing too. I think it's because people find what we do and what organizations like ours support to be quite natural. It's about ideas. It's about activating the power of the human spirit. It's about believing in kids and believing that they have the power to make those ideas happen, and that they already possess all the resources they need. They just need to be shown how. And that's what we do at Nifty.
You guys are a obviously huge, influential organization. Yet, talking with you, JD, I'm so struck by the accessibility of the organization, of your huge passion and desire to bring some free things to teachers in schools. That's just incredibly impressive. And then your own humility, and my goodness, you're so accomplished, but you really seem to live everything you've said and empower students. I do hope you get in those remote states. I remember my daughter in her college search, we're up in New York, and they're like, okay, is anybody from South Dakota? You're in right now. There's just certain states it's sometimes hard to reach. So I'm sure in no time you guys will be in all the states. So thank you.
Thank you.
Nifty in all 50. There's your campaign.
Hey, I love it. Wow.
You get
slogans.
You join on my PR team? That sounds really good.
I won't charge much for that one. Send the check. Oh, awesome. Well, you've already shared, JD, with us how our folks can get in touch with you. So we will also put that in show notes as well. So, but you guys are pretty easy to find. Is there any other things that you want to share with our audience before we close? Because this has been an absolute blast having you today.
Well, first of all, I just want to thank you again for the invitation and celebrate all that EntreEd is doing for the cause of entrepreneurship and entrepreneurship education. I think that very soon we will see entrepreneurship education cohere into a real movement, because what we do in our respective ways is really important and really valuable. And I think the world is beginning to see that as we are tested in some new ways because of the things going on in our society. And as educators and leaders and policymakers begin to question traditional ways of doing education. So I am very optimistic about the future of Nifty, and I'm most optimistic about the future of our learners. I told you that we just finished our spring competition season, and now we're running summer camp programs as well. And I just a couple of hours ago was talking to two of the winners from one of our summer camp programs. And they were telling me, they're from Lowell High School in Massachusetts, a very diverse school that serves a very largely disadvantaged population. And they took part in a program that was supported by Nifty and a great organization called American Student Assistance, which is philanthropy here in Massachusetts, and the federal Gear Up program, the sort of college prep program. And it was fantastic camp. And they came up with a great business idea, and they were so excited about it. It's a hair care product, and they were telling me all about it. And I said, well, what are you going to do next? And I said, well, they said, well, we're going to continue to pursue this because now we know we have something good, and we want to, continue bringing it out into the world. And I said, do you feel like you will continue to be with us as part of the Nifty community? I said, absolutely. So what is so great is that the enthusiasm in our learners' eyes when they come up with that idea and that spark that causes them to really get excited. That's what learning really ought to be about. And I'm optimistic about the future of entrepreneurship education because that's what our programs produce. And I'm so pleased to be leading an organization with a fantastic team who works every day to make those moments happen for thousands of learners across the US and around the world. So thank you for giving me a little time to talk about it. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Every time we have these wonderful conversations, it's been a joy to talk to you today. I get just excited all over again. I feel very honored to be a part of a global community with the like mindset of trying to bring entrepreneurial mindsets to younger folks and even to older folks. Like I said, it's lifelong learning. So thank you for jazzing me all over again and getting me excited about what we do.
Great to talk with you both.
Thanks so much. And we are sure that our audience will absolutely love you. And we hope that everyone connects with Nifty and check out everything they have to offer. It really is great stuff. Thanks, JD.
Thank you. Bye-bye.